Let's see. I've got to transition this scene. So much fun stuff going on. All right, let's see. All right, well, thank you for joining us and jumping up early. We've got the Darling Coils, or one of the Coils, if that.
It's just one guy.
What, one guy? Thanks for moving up a little bit early. But let's see, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Just running through some interviews today. It's our first interview stream, so it's pretty exciting to meet some artists who
Very cool.
are on our little label that we got going on. But you are part of like an indie collective, right? Like it's Savor Music.
Perfect. Yeah, Saber Music. So, you want to talk about that a little bit? I mean,
Yeah.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So, where I come from is Charlotte, North Carolina, and back in the early even before 2010, I think I started a group in 2007, and I was just like part of a really big kind of live music scene in Charlotte for a number of years. And as everybody kind of grew apart and started like, adulting, we all kind of independently continued making music throughout the years and bouncing ideas off of each other. And back in 2016, we kind of decided that it was a good idea to start a little label to promote each other's music and collaborate, and it's kind of turned into like a pretty big cool thing amongst the small group of people that's involved. But it's pretty good. Like we just came out with a mixtape on the 15th, and it showcases not all of but some of the acts, and it's like it displays a pretty wide range of music, like hip hop, ambient, vaporwave. There's some noise sounding tracks, some pop sounding tracks, and it all kind of blends together pretty nicely in this weird way.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's ironic that you guys released on the 15th. The Lemon Trees released their second album on the 15th too, so I think that's pretty wild. Is that mixtape out just like online, or how do you hear that?
Okay, so right now, this might be the only way that it exists, because we're kind of trying something a little bit funky with the marketing for this. But right now, you can stream the album in music video form on YouTube.
What?
And you can buy it on cassette from our website, savormusic.com.
Cool. Okay.
And I'm pretty proud of it. There was probably 8 different people involved in the production of this thing, all independent artists. So
corralling
it's really cool.
corralling 8 different people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been all right. Everyone, kind of works, and then we just, it kind of fell on my shoulders a little bit to make everything work in the end, but it's worth it, because it's fun. We're all passionate.
Yeah. In the end, music usually turns out to be fun and worth it.
Yeah.
So what about the Darling Coils? How long have you been doing that?
The Darling Coils. I suppose I've been going by that name since 2015 or 16. I think I released an album, my first EP on Spotify under that name in 2016, maybe 17. But for all these years, I've been kind of playing music in a group setting or one way or another, and growing up, watching my peers kind of experiment with home recording and production was inspiring for me. It's like, get some microphones, get a little mixer, get a little 8-track recorder, and you can make a CD with your band on it. So it was like super awesome, super creative. And so I've been kind of making music in a group setting or by myself since I was probably like 13 or 14. And when my friend Dave moved in with me, maybe whenever I started the Darling Coils shit, he gave me this. Well, this was before he moved in. He gave me this little Korg synthesizer, and this kind of like was the catalyst for me to make actual like indie electronic music, you know, outside of a digital audio workspace where you just have all of this like bullshit bells and whistles, you know, anybody can do anything and it all kind of just sounds like whatever. But this was like kind of a fun piece of hardware, you know. You can get like outer space sounds, and it's got a drum machine in it, and it's like all really analog sounding, you know. It's so that was a huge inspiration for me, and trying to incorporate that into kind of like singer songwriter folky kind of stuff. So that's what the first album was it's called The Acid Folk, and it's essentially just a cheap acoustic guitar and that thing and some like hand percussion. So
that's pretty wild. Yeah, Hayden, who we were listening to you guys last week, and we were like, okay, so we should invite you guys on to this stream. He wasn't able to be here, but he wanted to ask you this question. So, listening throughout your discography, your music has evolved a lot from like your acoustic guitar ballads all the way to electronic music where you can like dance to it. What gives you the inspiration for each?
So usually it boils down to, well, when I approach an album, I like to give myself kind of just a confinement. Like, okay, for this album, we're going to use just sampled drums. We're going to use just this particular synth sound, you know, fuzz guitars and saxophone. And then that is kind of like the foundation for everything on an album. And so it just comes down to what is exciting me at any given point in time. You know, a lot of these tracks, the most recent one, How You Take Me Down, I wrote it and recorded it and released it within 24 hours.
What?
So like I had the drum sample I captured from this other band that I'm in, the Kooksters, and that is like it's a bar blues kind of band, right? But every week we get together and we jam and we record all the jams, and I managed to sneak in, you know, a 4-bar loop of me behind the drum kit, right? And I captured it without the noise of, you know, the guitarist or the bassist or the piano, whatever. I got the drum loop. So I come back here to the studio and I isolated that, and that was the foundation for 3 tracks that I kind of just like rapid fire make, because the fun idea for me is like experimenting with the approach to the production. So it's like, all right, I got a drum loop. Let's figure out how we can stretch this drum loop around, turn it into like something that I can resample. You know what I mean? And so that one was the second of 3 tracks I used with this drum loop. And once you get cooking, it just happens organically. And so it's like, I've got these old guitar samples that I did, these old loops. So we're going to use the loops. We're going to use the drum sample. I got the 606 already sampled in the in my library. So it's like, essentially whatever is exciting me and however my template is set up at the time will dictate what the album sounds like. So
okay.
That's the approach. And like everything that you're hearing recently, maybe the past like 2 albums, I'm not using any software synthesis. It's all like recorded and then resampled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I might go as far as using like a wavetable or something, but like I've got cellos, like cello sounds, and the cellos, I take that sound and I put that into a wavetable, and so now that's a synthesizer that I've kind of made organically.
Interesting.
So I kind of like doing that. It makes all my stuff sound a little bit more personal and more unique than just what's in the box, you know?
Yeah, it's a part of making your sound and putting yourself out there. Yeah, it was interesting hearing you talk about you were 13 and you guys were like recording onto like an 8-track, and now where we're at in like 2021, like if you have a MacBook, you got GarageBand,
Totally.
and it's super, like, music has just become more and more accessible to like produce. But it seems like you really like to do the organic half of it, where you're playing the music.
Well, you kind of have to go through phases as a producer. You know, the first 10 years, maybe not 10, maybe like 8 years or so, I was just working off of that same Fostex 8-track digital recorder. I didn't have a computer. You know, like I didn't get a computer until I went away to college. So from the age of 13 through 18, I'm using this thing. And then even after I got the computer, I didn't realize how sick GarageBand was
Yeah.
for maybe another year or two of still using this, Fostex to track everything. And so, yeah, once you get a digital audio workspace, you kind of have to go through the phase of exploring everything that has to offer, and then you kind of reach a point where you dial it all back to, like, take it back to the basics and figure out how to just be tasteful and minimal, you know.
Yeah.
So, I think that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah. Once the workstation gets introduced to you, it's like there's a buffet of things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
So what?
Bye social life.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here. What was your first instrument that you started off on?
Oh, well, I guess my parents got me a Yamaha cheap keyboard when I was 3, you know. And so I was never really formally trained on that until like later, but they would go take me to see like Aladdin or something in theaters. And then I'd come home and be like trying to play the soundtrack from Aladdin by ear, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always had like a real affinity for trying to like create music, or more so recreate music that kind of like sparked interest in me, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be a common theme. People who make music tend to not be
They
able
want
to
to
get away from it.
emulate music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And so it was keyboard for a while, and then I guess when I was 9, I got an acoustic guitar, and I grew up watching my dad play guitar, so that was like a huge deal. And then played saxophone through high school, picked up drums along the way, being in live groups with drummers that had drum kits that I could jump behind every once in a while and play around. So yeah, you just build up a repertoire of stuff over the years.
yeah, certainly. So now, I guess since you're in charge of all of your music, do you try to like throw a saxophone whenever you can, or like are you?
Fun. Yeah, sometimes I'll let the production speak to me, and the the saxophone was the last element that I added in that most recent track. I want to start doing more saxophone because I figured it's easiest for me to write a song on either a piano or guitar. I'm like super comfortable behind those, and it's very easy to come up with progressions. And then you lay down some lyrics, and then you got to fill in the gaps with something. So what are you going to fill it in with? Another, like a fuzzed out electric guitar, which everyone can play a guitar. It's like a saxophone is kind of like a unique element that not too many people are utilizing. And hey, I've got a saxophone and I know how to play it, so let's throw the saxophone through a fuzz pedal, you know?
Well, yeah, that's
So, yeah.
that's pretty fun. Oh no! All right, I gotta go to my list of questions now. So it seems like your family is pretty musical. I like to. I've interviewed one person, so, but like, so music was always around you. I mean, you started at 3. Was formal training starting like with your dad when you first got your guitar? Or like, were they always like, this is how they do it, or?
Yeah, well, it's like they tried to give me piano lessons, like professional, whatever, if you want to call it professional. They hired somebody to give me piano lessons when I was 7. I did that for maybe a year. I rejected it. I didn't like anybody telling me what to do. I played saxophone all through elementary school, middle school, high school. Well, I mean, I guess you don't really start. I don't know how it is where you live, but they introduce music like that as an option in 5th grade. So
Yeah.
in 5th grade, I started playing saxophone, and then I played that all through high school. And I was never that great. I didn't excel because it still seemed kind of like, I don't know, weirdly academic. And I was very anti authoritarian, kind of a punk rock attitude kind of dude. So I didn't like being told what to do. But I learned the foundations. I learned how to read music like that. Guitar, I only ever just learned by uh, watching my dad and then just playing with other people and just kind of picking up stuff along the way. So I still say that I'm self-taught, even though I've had a little bit of attempts at formal training. But yeah, you know, just I just am drawn to it, you know.
Yeah. So you follow your ear mostly as a
Yeah,
as a
pretty
way
much.
to
I
go.
mean, these days I know how to, like, if someone says like, "Oh, we're gonna do 12 bar blues in B flat," and you know, we'll play the six instead of what
Yeah.
I can do all that. But for the most part, yeah, it's just all by feel and by ear and
Cool. And then so like who's inspiring you? I guess when you started at 13, who are you listening to, and then how's that changed? How's it changed?
so I've always been the biggest fan of my peers playing music around me, being inspired by like my friends. So when I was like 13 and 14 and 15, maybe all the way up through 17, 18, uh, my friend Danny had a band called Mickey Biscuit, which huge shout out for Mickey Biscuit right now. They broke up a while ago, but that was like the coolest shit ever. And being a 14-year-old and going to these, like, it was like a punk rock atmosphere, but the music was like psychobilly kind of two-step, almost with like a country, but like goth. It wasn't goth, but like the crowd was kind of like very alternative, and the music was like super energetic in a punk rock realm. And so I was just super inspired by that. And I've always liked punk rock. Like, I was a huge Misfits fan when I was a kid, so I love the Misfits and like skateboarding and skateboard culture and all that kind of fun, thrashy, like NoFX, Blink 182 kind of stuff. Um, I guess somewhere along the lines, maybe you start like smoking weed and doing acid and stuff, but I liked more psychedelic, kind of weird experimental stuff. Like early Animal Collective, as cliche as that sounds, was like kind of really harsh and unexpected, and I liked that a lot. I don't know, it's all over the place, man. I'm inspired by a million different things at any point in time. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild because once you start making music, almost nothing becomes off limits. Like whenever I'm listening to stuff, I'm like, oh wow, that's like a really interesting thing to throw in there.
Yeah,
And then you start like hunting and finding
totally.
different stuff to do.
Yeah. It's become like it's kind of cool since I'm playing music with a bunch of old guys now in this band, the Kooksters. They listen to like old blues like Robert Johnson and Fats Domino and all that kind of stuff. And like I'm getting more into like soul and like rhythm and blues, but in an old sense, you know. And so that's kind of really helped me with my songwriting and my song structure, like take it back to the basics, you know. If it works, it works, and this is just sonically, this kind of progression works, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it actually is much more like emotive than you know, a bunch of laser beam sounds and you know, a dance drum beat or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always
Yeah, just trying to balance out the earthy with the synthetic.
for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. As you pointed out, I found that when I'm playing music, usually like if I'm listening to somebody, like I'm a guitarist, so naturally Hendrix was a big influence. And so if
Love him.
you listen to Hendrix, then almost invariably you're gonna like listen to Muddy Waters. And if you listen to Muddy Waters, you're gonna BB King. And if you go BB King, you're like
Totally.
keep going backwards.
Exactly. The music is such a great rabbit hole. You know,
Yeah.
I find myself getting inspired by everything. And so, yeah, definitely Jimi Hendrix is huge, man.
Yeah.
He's
Especially
huge.
yeah, fuzz guitars. Yeah, I mean, you have to like Hendrix. All right, let's see. We got some cool ones. So with production, how have you learned that? Like, what are some of the like pitfalls that you ran into, or?
So for a while, you know, there was like this era, 2009, 10 era, when I'm like, I'd been producing myself and my bandmates and all this for a few years at that point, but we're listening to things like Washed Out and Gauntlet Hair and, you know, whatever was like chill wave or alt rock at the time. And it was like just super drowned in reverb. And so you're not really focused on capturing such a great sound. You're like just taking everything you record and just throwing effects on it and throwing it through reverbs and just throwing a limiter on the end and just squishing everything and making it all loud and crazy. And so, you know, that's definitely a sound, that's an approach, but I find more so today just recording things through an SM57. You know, this MXL is what I use for vocals, and it's not particularly great or expensive or anything like that, but the vocals, it's nice, it's a little bit brighter than the SM57, but I use the SM57 for everything else because I know what to expect out of that microphone if I put it in an amplifier, if I put it down the horn of my sax, or if I point it at the acoustic guitar, you know. So what I've learned to do for production in these later years is really limit all the options just to kind of simplify the process, because it can be overwhelming if you've got a million microphones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you've got like a million different compressors. It's like I try to stick to 2 or 3 different compressors only. You know what I mean? I'm not jumping for new, like a bunch of this and that. It's like, no, I like the way this one sounds for this. I like the way that one sounds for that. Let's just keep it simple, and it speeds up the process.
Yeah.
You know? Because over the years, you kind of romanticize the whole mixing aspect and tweaking and just really taking your time playing with different things in the digital workspace. And what ends up happening is you never get anything done. Nothing gets finished. You just sit there and tweak it and play with it forever and ever and ever, when you should have probably just been going with your gut instinct and using the 1 or 2 things you know work and just keep moving on. And as soon as you have an idea, record it and be done with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really helpful for people starting out. It seems like the easier you make it on yourself, like, because you could get overproduced but underproductive, where you're just not putting anything out, and that's kind of,
you can tweak something to death and it just becomes so far removed from the source. You know what I mean? And so trying to capture the source and the idea as efficiently as possible, that seems to be kind of the approach.
Nice. So let's see. Okay, and then so we've also talked about on other interviews, we've talked about who are you outside of music? Is there life outside? Do you do anything else, or?
Well, I am a video editor at an advertising agency.
So still ingrained in art, pretty much.
Still kind of, that's a little bit consuming. And then I do freelance video editing work and freelance mixing and mastering and producing for musicians.
Nice.
So I'm kind of in the period right now where I'm trying to, you know, turn all the musical effort into a reliable source of income. Probably not a good idea to do that from the jump.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're never going to make money if you're going into making music with the idea that you're just going to make money. But me and all my artist musician friends are constantly grinding away making music, and we've got such a wealth of stuff that it just makes sense to try and promote it and market it a little bit, you know?
Yeah. So what do you guys do in order to market it? Like, what have you found to be effective?
Well, I mean, we're learning it right now. So we're buying ads on Instagram and on Facebook, and we promote it on streams, live streams. I don't know if you watch Chillwave Kittens or 100% Electronica. These are like vaporwave. The vaporwave community is actually really awesome and welcoming, and uh, I've been following that music since it came out. Vaporwave, like what pop started popping off in like 2013 or 14 or something like that, and we've been kind of trying to ride that wave and like missing that wave for years. So just trying to stay active amongst other music communities and just keep the discussion open and making people aware of releases when they come out, and actually buying ad spaces and doing, music videos, just the whole anything you can think of that should probably be something to do, just do it.
Just do it. It can't
Just
hurt.
get it done. It's not gonna hurt. Yeah, it
Certainly.
might cost you a little bit of time and a little bit of money, but why not, try.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like every time I watch an artist interview or with the people that have been on tonight, it's art kind of is not really like a secondary thing. It's kind of like you have to do it.
Yeah,
And so,
totally consuming.
yeah. So might as well just go all in for it. Otherwise, it's not gonna.
Exactly. Why not try to make a living out of it?
Yeah.
You're gonna be doing it for your whole life anyway.
So
I think that's where we're at.
yeah. Let's see. So with being a DIY artist, what have you found to be the most challenging aspect? Like actually writing the songs. I mean, we talked about writing a little bit. We talked about production. We're talking about getting out and playing live, possibly. What was the biggest jump for you?
Like the hardest part about being a DIY artist,
Or even possibly just even an artist. Like for me, the initial
trying to make money has always been a hard thing for someone that is totally art minded. Money is inherently, it's not evil by any means, but it's like the business side of music. Trying to actually make money at it is very difficult. And so we gotta, you have to sacrifice your soul a little bit to grind somewhere else to make money, is what I've found a lot of. Just the hardest part about being a DIY musician is finding the time and energy to just constantly be pursuing writing and producing my own music. If I were able to afford rent, based off of music, then there would be no problems with being a DIY artist at all.
Yeah.
But it's like no one's paying the bill on that, so
Sometimes the reality of life has
yeah,
has stepped in the way. Certainly, because art. I mean, music writing. It's also its own job. So if you have your 40-hour a week kind of setup,
totally.
it's draining.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you find yourself up till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and you're like, "Oh shit, I got to be up for like work in 4 or 5 hours." Shit.
Yeah, I'm just coming to terms with all of that. Let's see. So for someone who is starting out, then if they're either learning music to start out, or learning the production half, or just starting to write songs, what would you say would be your greatest piece of advice?
Don't listen. Well, if it sounds good to you, it's good. Okay? Don't take anyone outside of your creative vision's advice too seriously. Always consider everything people are giving you. If they're giving you constructive feedback, great, take it. But if you think something sounds good, it's good. And don't do it for money, because it's not that easy. You know what I mean? It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, but if you're passionate about it, time flies, and that's not really a factor.
Yeah.
I find it very meditative. I do it as like just a form of like, I feel like I'm purifying myself every time I sit down and make music.
Yeah. Do you find that you are able to say things that you normally wouldn't be able to say when you're writing the music?
Like being cryptic with my with lyrics or something like that? Like, sure. Totally. Yeah. I love it. The lyrics, sometimes it's weird. Sometimes I write a song and, maybe I go through a breakup and I've got a whole bunch of poems that I've written about, a girl, or, whatever. I've got material written, but sometimes I'm inspired by just a sound, and, I'll have 2 or 3 songs that are just like fully fleshed out instrumentals with no idea what they're about. And so a lot of times it's a struggle to write the lyrics. That might be the hardest part about songwriting, is if you don't have lyrics, just trying to come up with lyrics is a little bit tricky and time consuming.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that as well. Like, I'll have a cool melody, but like the lyrics just never fit. I'm like, God, come on.
Sometimes you got to force yourself to write something and then record it. And then, especially, this is nice as a DIY musician, because you have the freedom to just record it and then, I don't like that, and delete it and re-record it at no extra cost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can't be afraid to kill your baby a lot of times, I've got, I don't know how many albums out, 3 or 4, 5 or whatever the hell it is, but that's only of the music that I released. You know what I mean? There are hundreds of tracks that just died on the vine,
Yeah.
You just gotta be ready to just kill them.
Yeah, it's not working. Yeah, that is kind of nice, where you're the producer, and
totally
you're the one paying the bills, so no one really can tell you what's going on. So, oh man, I forgot my train of thought. But such is the way, as being the DIY interviewer. All right. So, is there anything in the works for you right now? You just released that cassette with everybody. The
cassette is pretty cool. So for the next week or so, we're going to be running ads trying to sell that thing. If you want to buy that, you can go to savormusic.com/store, and it is the mixtape 1. As far as music projects that are coming out, I'm working with a group. Well, it's just one other guy, Justice, and this band is called Mannequin, and it's like goth industrial kind of thrash. It's not quite metal, but it's like thrash punk industrial dark wave. It's pretty cool. And we got a 3-song EP that's recorded, and that's going to be releasing sometime within the next month or 2. My solo act, Darling Coils, I've got maybe 20 tracks recorded that I'm trying to like cull down to the best 10, and I'll put out an album. What else is on the lineup? Oh yeah, I'm in another group called Counterfeit, which is with my friend Dave, who is, I guess, one of the co-owners of Savor Music, and that is kind of down-tempo, industrial, heavy sampled, heavy kind of drum machine, almost hip-hop instrumental. If you ever listen to stuff like Clams Casino, or whatever, I don't know. There's a lot going on with that. That one's really exciting. It's kind of like, almost like if you were just listening to Death Grips instrumentals or something. So that's pretty exciting. That one, we don't really have a time frame for when that is going to be released, but that is in the works. So we got Mannequin, Counterfeit, and Darling Coils, all of which are Savor Music artists.
Cool. So that's about to wrap us up. Thank you so much for taking time and
Thanks for having me.
putting your faith in us to do a good stream.
Yeah, man.
And then we're gonna let you go. Good luck on this next year. Seems like you got a lot of stuff on your docket.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, dude.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.